Welcome everybody to Haunting Live podcast. Thank you very much for tuning in today. We appreciate you guys being here with us on this weekend and tuning in for this special episode. This weekend we do have a double podcast for you guys, so I'm very excited for this one actually for today because we're talking about a topic that is widely discussed and deeply connected to myself as well, and had lots of experiences in this subject, and it's something I've always wanted to have a expert come on to the show and talk about, and we have one of those people on here with us here today, all the way from Rez Squatching Research in Nebraska, USA. We're honored to have him on the show here, so let's bring in Barry today and talk a little bit about what he does for research in the field of Sasquatch research here today on the show. Hello, Barry. How are you?
I'm good. Trevor, I'm just so glad to be here. I'm a little excited, to be honest. But again, thank you for having me.
Oh, no, the honor is all ours here at Haunting Live. This is a topic I've always wanted to cover more in depth here at the show, as I've had experiences with Sasquatch in the past and never been able to explain some things. And I'm sure listeners that follow us, if they've had experiences, I'm sure we'll get a lot of unique detail from you here today as well. So,
Good.
First of all, though, Barry, again, thank you so much for taking your time out. But I'd like to start here today with you and talk a little bit about your history and your background. What was it like growing up for you? Was that always there in your background, or was that something that was kind of taught to you? Or
Yeah, I don't know if it was. I know that historically that our people, have always coexisted with them. So it was always, I heard it even last night on a show, interwoven into our culture. So I used an example one time. I said, I knew about Sitonga before I knew about Batman and Robin. I know you guys are in Canada. You might not know about those two superheroes, but it was always I don't know if I want to call it a legend, but it was always told to us at a very young age. So, that was always, the legendary teaching.
yeah, so was it something that your parents or even the elders in your tribe would talk to you about? Was there any lessons or teachings that they would tell you growing up?
Yeah. They always, it was different for us in a way that, I think it taught us about respect and especially my people, the way they told it, they were hube, and which meant they were holy. God, they were highly favored of God, and they were blessed. They were blessed with these special abilities. So it doesn't surprise me, that none of them have been caught or they're just what do we say? They're elusive, But we've always known that as Native people, they were designed through God, to not be found and, let alone seen.
Right, and that's sort of my belief here too. I'm not going to lay on sort of what I believe on what other people might believe, but that is sort of the general idea, I think, behind the creatures. They're sort of these elusive beings that are mysterious. Is that sort of your belief as well, or is that what you lean towards?
Yeah, I would say, I'm sorry, I'm getting my footrest here. I didn't mean to sink in my chair, but I would say so. In my case, I'm a little different. I think I've had some very wonderful, and I believe me, I'm not trying to over dramatize this, but I've had some incredible encounters. Excuse me. In a sense that they were face to face, and in fact, if if I was a bragging man, I would say that I probably had um, some of the most amazing encounters you'd ever want to tell. You know, um, it's been a blessing to me and a blessing, from God, really, uh, that I've been able to experience that with team members also. So yeah, so
Yeah,
I don't know that they're not designed to be seen. I just think it's in the approach.
right. So you believe more that they are kind of more like spiritual in the sense that you're able to see them because they allow you to be seen?
Yeah, I wholeheartedly believe, for me, it's a spiritual thing because that's how we view them. So it's not a good old boy, let's get together Canadian style, let's go hunt these guys. It's more of a, we treat them with a lot of respect, and our approach is very unique to what we believe, and that is respect, humility, and through prayer. So
Right. I believe that too, actually, on my side of things, when we investigate spirits and energy that way as well, we do the same thing here. We treat them with respect. And the more you respect what you're looking for, I think you'll find what you're looking for.
yeah, yeah, absolutely.
So, next question I have for you, Barry, is what was your sort of background belief in the paranormal side of things? Does that relate to you guys in your tribe as well? Do you have beliefs in the paranormal?
Yeah, yeah, we call the spirits or the ghosts, paranormal, whatever you want to call it. We call them wanach, wanach. So we have a word for that too. And in fact, Trevor, I don't mean to interrupt this, but can I share this with my page now?
Oh, yes, take a moment, and there should be a post up there for you to share now, as well as anybody else that's watching. If you feel free, if you're interested, do share our work. It helps us out a lot, actually.
Okay, let me see here. Exit, minimize. Okay, I'm not seeing. Okay, so if I share this one, Trevor, it says Dawning Podcast Season 2, Episode 22.
This one should be episode 23. If you refresh, there should be a new one there.
Okay, all right, hang on here. Yeah, there we go. Let me share that real quick, and we'll get back to the show, huh?
Awesome. I appreciate that, Barry, a lot. And anybody else, like I said, that feels free to share our work if you're interested in what we do. It does help us out a lot. So,
Share to the group. There it is.
awesome. Yes, we are live right now with Barry here on HauntingLIVE podcast discussing the cryptid of Sasquatch and what his beliefs are and what research he has done on the subject here.
All right, I'm good.
Again, thank you so much for being here, Barry. And we started the interview just a few moments ago. For those tuning in, thank you so much for taking your time out and watching us today here on Haunting Live. So I was just asking you before we took a moment there what your beliefs were in the paranormal. How does that relate to Sitonga and Sasquatch in your tribe? Does that actually connect at all on any level, or is it all spiritual? Or
I think I think I said one time that before you get to the Situnga, you got to deal with a little bit of paranormal, the spirit side of it. And so I think it directly relates. I have to tell you that we've kind of become kind of immune to maybe seeing a spirit, before we interact with Sitonga. And then we've developed, and even our tribal elders taught us that you set out tobacco when the spirits come around and you ask them to leave. And we at Rez Squatching have come up with our own little saying. We say "Wanach maling," leave. We're not here for you. And that seems to work. So absolutely, though I agree. There's a direct correlation. It's hand in hand.
Yeah, I believe that as well. When we do our investigations on our side of things, we always have to be respectful to what we're doing and the locations that we're at as well. And I think the more you do that, the more interaction you have. So
Yeah.
I think that works the same way. Do you feel that Sitanga Sasquatch is sort of above spiritual level? You know what I mean? Like, do you think spirits are on one level and they're sort of on the next level?
You know, I haven't really looked at it that way, but as you pose that question, I think so. I think, you know, I honestly, I never looked at it that way, but I'll tell you this though, that I think, you know, I'll go back to our beliefs, and that is, you know, God created everything, you know, and including the sea tonga. Um, and our research has taught us that they are very receptive to prayer and to the. If you're a Christian, you'll know about the Holy Spirit, and so that's something I strongly believe in, that there's a direct connection there. There's something going on there that may be missing in the Sitanga's life, and they're yearning for that spiritual upliftment, I guess, for lack of a better word. So
Yeah, for sure. I think that as well. Let me ask you another question here then next. Sort of what was your teachings from the elders about the paranormal field? Have they taught you anything about the background of it, like before you got into it yourself?
yeah, I think a lot of times, you know, some of our elders, because they didn't fully understand, it was always easier to say, stay away from them, you know, leave them alone. You know, I used to get that until people really understood my motive. And my motive was simply to pay respect to them. And today, you know, I think people fully understand that I go out there to pray for them and to interact in a good way. In fact, I'll say this, and it's no secret that I have built a relationship with them now. And you know, if you don't believe me, or just come on out with me, you know, or watch my podcast. I don't get too in depth off my lives, you know, but I think there's no doubt that we've built a relationship with them.
Yeah, I see that as well. I think they touch upon that on these different shows and whatnot, and I'm not gonna talk about the shows at all because I want to more stick to what you do and your research here today. But they do say the more you start interacting with them, the more they get used to you. And do you feel that? Like, do you feel that with you going out, you're making a connection that way?
Yeah, you know, let me not to single myself out from the rest of the what I call this chaos in the Bigfoot world, you know, and you know, I I don't take anything personal, and I don't. I'll be honest with you, I don't follow a lot of people, not out of disrespect, because it just I if I don't agree, you know, I don't have an opinion either, you know, but I do respect people who take the time and make that sacrifice to do what they do. Um, but I can tell you that it's been nothing short of a blessing, our relationship with them. And I don't think my team would argue that I think there's something special going on, you know, with me and them.
So you've said before that you actually go out. You might be heading back out tonight. In fact, how many areas or hotspots, as you call them, do you actually go to?
Well, I maybe go to 3 or 4. It just depends on the activity level in those spots. You know, sometimes, you know, through inspiration or through interaction, we stay in that area for a while. You know, so it depends. It varies. I may go to 2. It depends on the activity level. And obviously some of our objectives, what we're trying to get out of that night.
Yeah, right, for sure. Sort of what do you experience when you go out? What's your sort of end goal when you go out on an investigation, trying to get activity? What sort of activity do you encounter first, and how do you know that that is happening?
Well, I think sometimes it's by feel, and sometimes I have a specific question that I want to know. And so what's been really interesting for me is the communication part. How do I know when they're answering me? You know, how do I know when we're getting our answer? And so that's been exciting and amazing. Uh, so that's kind of um, it just depends. Sometimes I take groups out, and sometimes I just want them to see the eye shine, or I'll ask them to throw a rock, or to give us a sign. So it depends, on the situation.
Yeah, so you sort of know when things are happening by sort of the activity that starts up.
Yeah.
What's the one most common thing that you have happen when you go out?
Well, I think the most common thing is the eye shine, curiosity. They they like to come check me out, and they get they get a little timid when someone's new with me, but eventually they come out. So that's probably the most common. I don't get too much into the wood knocks. That happens once in a while, but for the most part, I think they just like listening to me. My message, my spiritual message, or sometimes it's almost like they just listen to me. As a friend. You know, that's been pretty neat.
Well, especially if you have that special connection with them that only you go out there, you communicate with them and sending them energy and stuff like that. So you're reaching out to them on that sort of spiritual level. I think they would have more of a connection with you. Do you find that if you do bring somebody out or you go with a group, do you get less activity or they sort of don't come around as much if there's somebody new with you then?
Um, Before, early on, that used to happen, but as they got comfortable with me, and I think they trust me, so now they'll come out no matter who I have with me. I don't like to get um, too ask too much out of them. The eye shine is I think that blows people away enough. You know.
Right. I think eye shine is something physical, right? Somebody that is looking for something, they see something physical like eye shine, they're
Yeah,
like, oh yeah, there is something there.
yeah,
Where
yeah,
I think more for you is it more of on the spiritual, you can sort of see other things that people can't really see, like detecting wise. Like, can you detect their energy, feel that they're there, or
yeah. I can. You know, they were. It was interesting on this show. I'll just say this show. All right. They were talking about cloaking or going invisible, and my people have always, and some tribes are a little different, but my people have always said that, they can go into another dimension. They can they're a spirit. Basically what my elders would say. They can go from a physical form. And this show last night, these guys are really freaking out about, they shined a light on the eyes or the thermal, and there was nothing there, but uh, there was nothing there. And so, and I just found that a little interesting, that someone's finally catching up,
well, that's what I mean, right, Barry? I think a lot of things these days are becoming more insightful, being more aware of things around how things work in the world. And I think this is one of them. Like another topic I might talk to you about too today is the UFO activity. Like that has been a hot topic lately as well. And a lot of people say they're connected. Is that something that you kind of believe at all? Or do you think that UFOs and Sasquatch are connected?
um, I believe there has to be some kind of connection. Um, I'm one of those guys, and I told a couple of people this. I said, when if you go squatching with me, not everything's a Bigfoot just because you hear noises out there, you know. And I'm a what they call, excuse me, oh, I'm what they call a boots on the ground kind of researcher, and I kind of like that little phrase, if you want to call it. But if I haven't seen a UFO around, Sitonga, then I'm not gonna go out on a limb. But I'm not ruling out anything with these guys. I did see a alien one time, but then there was no Sitonga around. So I know they both exist, but I haven't seen that connection yet.
Right, too. Maybe I'll get you to explain that experience too, if you can, and if you're willing to talk about what you saw. But you also said to me a while ago too, when we were talking before the podcast here today, that you've seen lights as well on your property or on the reserve as well. Can you talk about the lights connection with Sitonga?
Yeah, I never, honestly, I never wanted to believe that, because I've had some really great face-to-face, up-close encounters with them. Not something just walking by, there was face-to-face interaction. And so I've always was of the opinion that they're physical people, really. That's how much respect we have for them. We label them as people. And but I'll tell you that it was always one of those deals where I'm not sure if I believed it yet until I actually saw it and experienced it myself. Not to deviate from the question, but one time on this show last night, I'm gonna refer to the show again. They heard the footsteps coming toward them, and then they actually got scared and left. Well, one time I stayed right there while my brother videoed the depressions that walked 60 yards from me at least. Boom, 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 boom. And walked a foot up from me. I could see in the grass his foot depressions in the grass while he stood right. I could feel his presence. And so that was a little I got a little chuckle out of that, because how are you going to learn anything if you run just because you get a little scared? So I think I even forgot your question, but I think for the most part it's one of those deals where they come in and out, and they come in many forms.
Yeah, that's something I've heard as well, that they tend to sort of manifest into whatever form they feel they can do. Because how else do you explain things like people find trackways, right? They'll see the tracks on the ground or in a snowbank or something, and there's only like a stretch of them, and then they suddenly stop in the middle of nowhere. Like, that's unexplainable to me.
Yeah. Well, yeah, and maybe this already, but they also they get in trees. They'll travel by trees too, just to avoid maybe making some of them tracks.
Now, when you say they travel by trees, do you mean they actually use the trees as a travel way, like they use the branches on the outside, or do you mean they actually are able to seriously use like the energy of the world or the forest and travel that way through plants and stuff?
Well, I got a real credible witness one time. He said, Barry, he said, have you experienced this? And I said, well, what? He said, he said it looked like the predator in the trees, and it was broad daylight. You could see that shimmer, and it was moving from tree to tree. And he said the whole outline was a Bigfoot, and a very credible witness. And I guess I got a new one for shimmer, materialize, dematerialize. So I kind of like that new word for it. So then I got another report that it did that. So they They have many forms, very intelligent beings. So I think maybe even as of today, they're traveling that way. You know, people think they run and hide, but I think really they're just dematerialized, maybe resting somewhere, you know, out in the open. You know, who knows? So I think there's a little more to it than that.
I agree too. I think they have certain abilities that we just haven't caught up with yet. We can't figure it out fully. One question I've always had too in my mind, this is just one off the top of my head for you. You know, we live in a city setting. Usually, we're usually around people, but I don't understand why we only have experiences, say, out in the wilderness or out in the forest. But a lot of people think that's because that's their habitat. But like, why don't they come to us more often? Like on the reserve, do you ever have them coming like right up to you guys?
You know, I that's a really, I'm glad you asked that question because where I live, right down the hill from me, there's a creek bed down there, and they'll travel through that. So they're coming in the back of houses. They're right in the middle, right in town. So given the right terrain, right environment, you know, they'll travel anywhere. Lately, it's been happening for years now, but down below, these dogs just go crazy. Every neighborhood dog is I get awoken by some of it because, you know, they're moving through and the dogs just go bananas over that. So
Yeah, I guess that's one clue. It's kind of like an alarm clock almost. When the dogs start barking, you know there's something around, right?
yeah, well then there's a different bark too, right? Yeah, they you know when it's something more serious than just somebody walking by. You know, dogs tell you a lot.
Is that why they tend to be more afraid of dogs? Like I've heard them attacking dogs a lot. Is that something that you find?
Yeah, my grandma had a big dog and it used to battle them, physical battle. In fact, we were close by when they actually got into a tussle. Her dog got into leave a tussle with maybe some juveniles, and they'll put up with so much before they, you know, zap them or give them a good whack, you know. So
So I'm going to stick to this topic for a bit here, and being about right in your area where you are, like in your community. How many people experience these? Like, how many reports do actually come out of your community?
how many reports?
Yeah, like how many activity? Like, is there a lot of activity around your area?
Yeah, I would say um, I will be conservative and say that I think sometimes it picks up. I would say on average, if everybody would report it, there's probably two a week with some really, you know, and let me clarify something because some people think just because they accidentally saw one that that it's a comparison now. You know, I think anybody can get lucky and see one as they drive by. But there's a big difference between the spiritual connection and having a relationship. I mean, you do the math. You know, I probably saw them over 300 times and quit counting as of last year, even. You know, I don't think that matters anymore to me. But there's a big difference when you say, "Hey, I saw one." Barry thinks he's big badass researcher. Well, you know, I think there's a big difference from over 300 versus your one sighting. You know, and I want to make that point because a young relative came on there and tried to blast me because of my Christian lifestyle and what makes you so special. And you know, I don't, you know, it's over with. I don't care about that, but I want to make that point that there is a big difference, you know. So
Well, a lot of that has to do with belief too, right? I think, like even
oh
like I
yeah,
said earlier, we investigate the paranormal side of things here. What we do, Haunting Live podcast. So we'll go out, we'll take our tools, we'll use our own abilities, our own senses, and try to communicate with the energy that's out there. So that's showing them respect. Like, you don't go out to a place and show it disrespect, you're not going to have anything happen. I think it's the same way with any creature, whether it's a live animal or it's a spiritual Sitanga or a Sasquatch. Like, you're trying to communicate with that being. So you're not going to go out there and show it disrespect because it's not going to communicate with you.
Absolutely. Yeah.
We do the same thing. Like, we don't get activity from the paranormal side of things and spirits and activity or trying to communicate if they don't want to show respect back to you. It's the same talking to a normal person, right? It works the same way. So
Yeah.
and that's sort of what this podcast is about too. This podcast here came out of the pandemic, and since we can't get out into investigations, we have to do things a different way. But, a lot of people do things the same thing, but they just do it in their own way. So this podcast is sort of to show how people do things as well. So
Yeah.
So my next way I want to go here is let's talk a little bit about your experiences. Is there some that you want to share with us that you're talking before you had some very up close, like face-to-face encounters? Can you sort of describe one of those incidences and sort of how that happened?
Yeah, I want to talk about one in particular, and then I'm gonna go back to this show again. They heard footsteps and something coming toward them, and bam, they were gone. And I have to admit, it kind of made me chuckle because, I went out with one of my nephews, and we were sitting in his car, and in fact, we were in his cop car, to be honest with you, and he had to. We were taking care of some business, and he said, we were all along the way, and he stopped in there, and we just started listening. And all of a sudden, we could hear these footsteps, and they walked right next to his side, the driver's side, while he was in his full uniform. And all of a sudden, his head bobbed, and he said, "Oh shit! Excuse my French or my Canadian there." And his head bobbed, and he said, "Oh, Uncle, man," he said, "I got dizzy." And I said, "You okay?" And he said, "You hear that? Somebody's coming." Little did we know that at the time, those were footsteps that walked right by his driver's side. Then they came around my side, and then they went behind this trailer and started moving leaves. You could hear it really moving the leaves, like rushing them out of the way. But that was one that was actually dematerialized. I'm using my new word. And so that was interesting. I forgot all about that encounter. So that was really strange how they have that same effect as a spirit would. I've heard that spirits go through you or by you, they give you that same effect, that weak feeling. So that was interesting. So
Yeah, they do. Spirits can do that as well. Spirits can actually drain your energy because they use your energy to manifest, right? They'll connect to you on that spiritual level, start draining your energy. We'll get that with paranormal tools that we use as well, like the recorders and stuff like that. Our batteries will drain right away. We know there's some energy around that's doing that. So, because it's not supposed to happen. You're supposed to be able to have power to your equipment and stuff. So, do you believe that they have some sort of energy where they can do that to you? Do you feel that they sort of attack your energy at all? Have you ever had that happen? Like, some people call it being zapped or something like that. They'll say they did this to me or that to me, and I felt weird after.
Yeah, I actually believe I probably got zapped twice. I've seen them drain our batteries. I've seen all that, but I think, again, as the relationship, built, I think as the relationship got stronger, I see less and less of that now. So it seems to happen with people they don't trust, or there's a lack of trust. So I think they can do that, but they're very selective about when they do that. Like I haven't had one happen to me in years, but again, I think because of the bond, it's gotten better.
No, that's a good thing. I think that they recognize you as a friend and they can come up to you and trust you. So
Yeah.
let's go that way, I guess. Then when people go out there and try to have an experience with them, do you feel that they don't like that? Do they not like people? Why do you think they don't want that communication? Is there a reason why, do you think?
Yeah. I you know, a lot of people probably, want that relationship or want an experience. And based on my research, like for example, maybe 2 weeks ago, I took a relative out, and he just had a real good spirit about him. And we had some very he had very good activity, but I could feel that calmness and that peace about his spirit. Very humble individual. And again, I'm gonna say it. We've been saying that for years. About they know who you are, they know your heart, they can feel your energy, and just like we humans, it's no different. And so, I think that's very much true that they know who you are, because this gentleman, first time he ever went out with me, I don't think he's ever been squatching, and we just, he complimented me very well, and we actually saw one on my thermal, so that was nice.
So do you find that as they trust you more? I don't know if you've ever done things to try to gift things to them. I know there's a thing called gifting out there. People try to sort of get their trust and gain their trust by giving them things. Is that something that you have done, or have you just done that on a spiritual level?
I've done that on a some of my team members do it all the time, which I don't think anything toward that. I think that's a nice gesture. However, I don't do it all the time, because I think what I've grown into is more the that spiritual message and the prayer. I think they really appreciate that. So that's kind of my gift to them. I don't get too much into the hang on. Can you come get this? Give this to mom. Excuse me. Got a phone call coming from my son. Take this to mom. Yeah. Yeah, hang on. I'm on the live. Yeah. So anyway, continuing.
Yeah, no, just about the gifting. So you believe more in the spiritual side than trying to attract them with little things and like physical things. You'd rather present them more spiritual message towards them.
Yeah, I do it sometimes based on the feel or the situation. Sometimes there's been some really special occasions where I just felt it in my heart to gift them. And I find they'll usually gift me back. So I believe that.
So what was one experience that you can share that was a result of you sort of opening up to prayer? Like, was there one really big moment that you had? Like, what was the most overwhelming moment that you kind of had with these?
I had maybe several of them. If I understand your question right, you're asking me when did I have to pray for them, or can you repeat that again?
Yeah, sure. More along the lines of using prayer and using spiritual belief. What was the most I guess, biggest experience that you had with one of these creatures? Was it something that happened because you did the prayer, or was it something? What was the most memorable one that you had?
Well, lately I got some interesting news, and I'm gonna leave it at that. But I got my answer through a prayer. It was this feeling I got along with one standing there, and I had team members there to kind of witness that. So um, it's been I believe, and I don't claim to be a medium. I made that very clear. But I will say that there is this through the Holy Spirit. I'm able to feel what they're trying to tell me. I don't believe in that. That's not what God says. We should be doing. So I believe this that He'll communicate through the Holy Spirit to me through them. You know.
So there was one present there when you received a message yourself, then, for something that you were asking for.
Oh, you asked, was there a present there, a gift? You mean?
No, like a presence, like there was one of these creatures there at the time that you received a message that you were waiting
Oh
for.
yeah, yeah. There's times when they're 25, 30 feet from me, you know, uh, giving me the message and sharing the prayer. So there's I guess as I look back, there's a lot of things that are going on, in terms of communication and closeness, proximity of their location.
Do you feel that they're kind of like protectors then at all? Do you feel like they're there to sort of protect you and your interest or their interest?
Yeah, yeah. I think they're a protector in a way that they protect themselves. I think you know, there's there's what I would call a covenant made. They're serving their time out here on earth till the second coming, and God has made it so that they would be protected. You know, people get bent out of shape when they pass laws that you can kill them, and you know, I just believe that they're very special beings. And under God's guidance and under His will, you know, they're okay. You know.
Well, that's just it. My sort of personal belief is I don't think one of these can be killed, to be honest. I think they just have too many abilities that that's not going to happen. If it would happen, I think it would happen by now, right? So I don't think
Yeah.
that's going to happen ever. I think the people on sort of the right side sort of thing that believe that they're pure animal and this and that and they're just elusive and all that. I think there's way more to the subject than them being just an animal, right?
Yeah.
I don't know for sure that they have powers or they have abilities, but I think there's definitely more to the story than them just being a normal everyday animal. So,
Yeah.
sort of, what's your personal belief then? I was going to ask you this one as well. What's your personal belief in the whole thing? Like, what do you think that they are, and what do you think is going to happen in the future?
Um, who are they? Right? Is that what you're asking? I used to withhold that and be leery of ridicule or what someone thinks, but anymore, I guess I've always never really cared, what you thought of what I did and how I do it, because that was for me, And a lot of times, people are just too chicken, to even go out and find out for themselves. So my people, we have a saying that we go against the current. So I think that's where I get that a little bit. I'm always not afraid to go against the secular world. But that's okay. I think to answer the question, um, through prayer, through critical thinking, through gathering of evidence, um, through pondering about it. I can tell you without a shadow of a doubt that I believe these are descendants of Cain, and they are here till the second coming. And it says it in Genesis, I think chapter 6 or 8, I can't verbatim the scripture right now, but I have no doubt because of, again, my research that these are descendants of Cain, and that they have multiplied, and they're all over now because they've been here so long. But I believe that God has them here because they're under a curse, and man tries to interrupt that, but God already had it set up this way for them. That's why they have these wonderful gifts. And so, take it as you want, any listeners out there, but I'll remind you, I've had some close encounters, and I've seen these guys up close. So, again, take it as you want,
Nope, that's great. Everybody has their own belief, and some are on the right side of things, some are on the left side of things. So that's totally open to everybody's interpretation, I think, as well. So, sort of just to finalize things here before we let you go today, and I think I touched on this a little bit before, but do you feel that they actually bring messages to us? Like, is there anything they're trying to tell us or teach us?
I raised that question on my page, and I believe this, that they are somehow denied maybe that interaction, because of the curse. And this may shock some people, but I think they are trying to be and honor their curse. And by saying that, what I mean is that they are denied some blessings, and they're cut off from God right now. So what they do is they're trying to be as committed and follow the rules, so to speak, so they can, regain, their original appearance, basically. I know that sounds deep, but it is what it is, man.
Yeah, it is. And I think that's come up before in different topics. People talk about that there's some path that they're on. There's some reason why they have certain rules that they have to follow. So that does actually make sense. I think there is a connection there, yeah. Okay, well, thank you, Barry, so much for taking your time today. It's been an honor to have you and to be able to actually meet you as well. I know we've been talking back and forth a little bit, so it's great to finally have you on the show here today. Just before we let you go, though, is there anything that you are working on that you want to sort of talk about or promote? How have things been during the COVID and stuff for you?
Well, I'll tell you this, that we have what I would call, how can I say this without sounding too boastful? I think we have reached the pinnacle in our research, and I'll leave it at that for a day to come. And those people who have experienced that with me or had privy to that, they know what I'm talking about. So I don't think that there's any rush, but stay tuned. Stay tuned, Trevor.
We will for sure. We'll be watching you guys. And do you want to promote your Facebook Live a little bit before we go? I know that you go live on Facebook doing streaming while you're investigating, so people might be interested in that as well.
You bet. You bet. Join. You can join Rez Squatching Research. All of you Canadians. It's called Rez, R-E-Z, Rez Squatching Research Community. Come join us. Probably one of the premier investigative teams out there. My page is growing every day. I'm grateful for that. And again, it's been a blessing from God, what we've experienced. Also, what I'd like to do is when we cut off, I'd like to stay talking to you, Trevor. So thank you for having us. It was a pleasure.
Yeah, thank you so much. Yeah, we'll just close off here for today, and then I'll give you a call right back on Zoom. How's that?
Yeah, sounds good.
Okay, thank you so much, Barry, for being
Yeah,
here. Rez Squatching Research, everybody. I believe it's you and your brother that run the group.
you bet.
Yep. Good luck tonight, and good luck in finding some more evidence, and hopefully you capture some great stuff tonight when you go.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you so much.
Yeah.
And that was Barry from Rez Squatch Research. He is in Nebraska, USA. This has been a special podcast here at Haunting Live. We have a double podcast weekend this weekend for everybody, so be sure to tune in tomorrow for our regular scheduled podcast. We have Tina, the Moonstone Medium, coming on, and she's going to be talking about Reiki and some medical Reiki and what that's all about. So it should be interesting tomorrow as well. Again, thank you to Barry and Rez Squatching Research for being here today. It's been an honor to have him on the show, and it's been great to talk about a topic that's been experienced by me personally and us here at Haunting Live. So we've had experience in this field as well, and it's great to get some answers directly from somebody, especially in the Native community there in the Omaha Reservation. So thank you so much for coming on today, Barry. And thank you, everybody, for tuning in. This is Haunting Live Podcast. If you're new here, please subscribe to our YouTube channel. If you missed the live show here, you can watch it on Facebook later on, or you can also listen to it on the podcast apps if you miss watching anything on social media, if you just want to tune in later on. Also, we will be uploading it to YouTube for the YouTube premiere, as we do every week right here around 11 o'clock later tonight. So check that out if you missed the live show here on our social media. But thank you guys so much for tuning in. Don't forget to check out our website, which is HauntingLivePodcast.com. We have different events happening. We have our merch store as well, where you can get some great items from us. We mostly sell crystals and smudging materials and stuff we use in the paranormal field. So if you're new, feel free to go check us out, HauntedLivePodcast.com. But thank you so much again, everybody. Have a great weekend, and stay safe.
Did you hear that?